Did the world go sideways? Our title was Help Did Burning Man Go Sideways? That's because our panel is composed of people who help burners' psychological safety. But considering our current state of affairs, we wanted to capitalize on this moment to do what we can here and now. So if you have a question throughout our session, please put number 1 in the chat box, and we'll get our Zoom moderator to help us with that. We'd also really love to hear from you. The struggle is real with parents who are trying to dual childcare right now. I know a burner named Caritas, who's a 13-year-old wise woman, and she, seeing what was happening around us, offered to provide virtual babysitting. So if you have little nuggets of inspiration or hope, giving and creativity or engagement, please put your one-lines in the chat box as well. So let's take a moment to just be with ourselves. We're going to breathe. We can shrug. Notice our breath. Feel the ground beneath us and smile into your camera, everybody. Yay! So, when things get weird, the word turned pro, as Hunter S. Thompson said. My name is Epiphany. I am from VW Bus Camp. We have been placed on Playa to burn for over 20 years. I do this panel because I think that the transformational experiences created on Playa frequently co-occur and are necessitated by difficult experiences, and that theme camp organizers need to know about these resources that are available. We also have with us on our panel today, Anna Duffy. She is an original founding member of the Crisis Intervention Team with the Emergency Services Department, which started in 2001. She was formerly a Green Dot Ranger and has had 25 years of experience advocating for those experiencing interpersonal violence, including attending forensic exams. She is currently working as the Director of Programs for Crisis Support Services of Nevada. Welcome, Anna. Can you unmic yourself and say hi? All right, we'll come back. Let's see if
Okay, I was pushing the wrong button. I was pushing the one on my face rather than the one down below. Sorry about that. Hello.
Hi, thank you.
Hi.
Okay, so we also have Alexandria Volk. She is a Burning Man artist, better known as BlackSwan. She is on her 22nd burn, and this will be her 20th year serving as a Black Rock Ranger. She's a self-described consent and sex nerd and has extensive experience in peer-to-peer support, including suicide and sexual assault. Say hi, BlackSwan.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, welcome, thank you. We also have, last but not least, Chelsea Rose. She is an associate marriage and family therapist and has been a staff member of the Zendo Project since 2013. She is the Zendo Project Operations Coordinator, Camp Mama Bear, and supervises volunteers at events around the country. Chelsea manages the crisis response team at her local emergency room and helps to run the testing kit program for Dance Safe, a public health organization focused on providing education and harm reduction worldwide. Welcome, Chelsea. You guys on the panel, you can just keep your mics open.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, I couldn't unmute myself. Hi, everybody. Nice to be here.
Thank you. All right, and then moderating for us on Zoom, I think we have Level. All right.
Berta, I'm here. Pita is here.
Oh, All right. So Berta is also a mama bear, but today she's going to be going by Vita for us. So BlackSwan is going to guide us in an exercise now to open, and then we'll have a panel discussion.
All right, there we go. Things were stuck for a second. Okay. First of all, you can close your eyes or not, doesn't matter. This will work either way. But just check in with yourself. Be aware of your body and your mood. Just kind of sit with that and let it be. Next, become aware of your breathing. Just breathe in a mindful way. There's no need to slow down or make it fast or anything like that. Just breathe and just be aware of it. Shift your attention to where you're seated or standing. Chair, bed, carpet, doesn't matter. Just feel its connection to you and to the floor. Expand your attention to the earth beneath that floor. Think about the earth holding that building, holding that space. And I want you to allow yourself to be held by the earth. You're literally in a safe space where you can be. Keep breathing gently. The earth is always there, always our ground, our dust of being. You have nowhere else that you need to be right now. You are always in the great empty heart of the world. The earth holds us all and fashions us. We are connected via the biomass of the earth that surrounds us, the common physical particles and molecules that make up the stars, the sun, every tree, every mountain, everything. We are all common things together. We belong in and are a tiny part of this vast web. Return to your breath. Open your eyes, ears, and heart to your surroundings. Take a breath. You're ready. Ready to listen, ready to speak, and ready to dwell in mutual peace as we begin. Welcome all.
Thank you, BlackSwan, and you can just leave your mic on. I want to welcome, we had quite a few people come in still while we were opening. I wanted to welcome everyone and say if you have a question or comment while we're working through our session, please enter a 1 into the chat box. Also, we're taking one-line inspirational stories of giving and hope during this time. So we'd love to hear from you as well. So for my panelists, what kind of work do you do in each of your roles at Burning Man with your organizations?
I can go ahead and go first. I'm Chelsea. I'm the Zendo Project Operations Coordinator, and I'll actually be moving into a full-time position taking Zendo to events starting May 1st. So I'm very excited about that. Like Leanne said, I've been working with Zendo since 2013. And my role has changed a lot over the years as the project has grown. I've kind of done a little bit of everything. Nowadays on Playa, I'm the operations lead. So I'm dealing with everything from the beginning of build to leading our build team, to being our camp mama bear and looking out for our camp throughout the event, as well as participating in the Zendo's training and the overall coordination and oversight of the Zendo spaces throughout the week. We've got 2 spaces currently. one at the 9 o'clock and one at the 3 o'clock keyhole. Our camp is a separate place. And so just really working with all those spaces and overseeing and supporting and giving to the project.
Yeah, so can you say a little bit about what Zendo does?
Absolutely, absolutely. So Zendo is Zendo Project is an organization, and our focus is providing peer support to people going through difficult experiences, often because of psychedelics, but also otherwise. And so we're going to events around the world providing peer support for people undergoing those difficult experiences. And then additionally, Zendo provides training and outreach to health professionals, all the way to grassroots organizations that are interested in having peer support services at their events. So, you know, it's kind of two-part. One part is that we're on site providing services at events and providing a safe space for people having difficult experiences. And then the second piece is doing trainings and education around peer support for organizations and individuals who are interested in that information.
Thanks, Anna. What about crisis intervention team?
The crisis intervention team is out there, part of emergency services, and we are a bike mobile team taking care of any calls for sexual assault, domestic violence, suicidal ideation, and true psychiatric issues. We are like a higher level of care. So if somebody goes to the Rangers and they think that there might be an underlying psych component, somebody can call us in. Or if we get called all the time for like if campmates, you know, partners and stuff like that are arguing or squabbling and they might think it's domestic violence, so our team gets called in. Or anybody reporting any instances of sexual assault, whether that be something as simple groping, you know, all the way up to possible rape, you know, we respond to that and work closely with law enforcement and my agency back here in Reno as well. So that's what we do out on the Playa. And again, we're bike mobile. We don't do therapy. We do crisis intervention and crisis triage out there because we want to keep everybody and get them back to their camps. And then if we need that higher level of care, we do have a very select hand-picked crew that are licensed in Nevada to do the legal 2000 or the legal psych holds so that they can assess the situation. Again, if we can keep somebody on the Playa, we do, but if they are just failing to thrive, we get them to the hospitals in Reno.
Thank you.
There's a question about what does peer support mean?
Epiphany, I put together a short training, so I'm going to go through that and share some slides with you all. So I'll let Epiphany go through her intros and then I can lead into that when she's ready.
Yeah, and Peter, we'll come back for questions periodically, okay? All right. BlackSwan, can you talk to us about the Green Dot Rangers and what they do?
Hi there, yes. The Green Dots are a subset of the Ranger Force. The reason why we're called that is way back in the days when dinosaurs actually still roamed the Playa. Fire and medical emergency services and Rangers were all one thing. And if you had a blue dot on your tag, you were known to be part of medical. If you were a red dot, you were fire. If you're a green dot, it meant that you were good at talking people down and holding space for individuals and doing that sort of stuff. Now, everybody's kind of gone away from the Rangers and formed their own departments, which is great, except for the Green Dots. And that's because essentially we do what Rangers do just for a lot longer period of time. Most of the time Rangers want to go in, spend 5 or 10 minutes with folks, see what's going on, and you kind of see if they can help people see their solutions or see their pathways forward or whatever it is that we're doing. But for the Green Dot calls, a lot of times it's about stickier situations that need a little more hand-holding, perhaps a lot more thought, perhaps a few hours of just holding space for somebody while they process things. Doing this, we often do find the things that Anna was talking about as far as, you know, harder things like sexual assault or domestic violence or other varied psych breaks, that sort of stuff, and that's when we call them. And so we work with them and hand people off and make sure that people get that the things that we need. And also our role as Green Dots then mutates into helping support those who are the loved ones or friends or campmates of the people who are going through these experiences. Because it's not just traumatic for an individual, it's traumatic to realize that something like this has happened in our fair city. And so we are there to provide all of the surrounding support mechanisms for people who are going through these traumatic events in their camps. So that's, and we also have a space that we can take people to if people just need to, if the space is part of the problem, or if they don't know where their space is, if they have lost their space and we can't find it. And that is the Sanctuary Dome. Sanctuary is located behind Ranger HQ, which is usually around 545, right there on the circle. And so if you just, you can either come up to Rangers and say, hey, I've got a candidate for Sanctuary, or you can call in on any Ranger team and say, hey, I think that we have a problem. Can you get us a green dot? I'm a green dot lead, which means that I am often with the person we call khaki, or the persons we call khaki, which are our radio dispatchers. And we sit at a table and we deploy people as needed. So I know where every green dot in the city is at any point in time. And so we can call them on the radio and tell them to get to your camp.
Thanks. Yeah. So how would a Think Camp organizer or any burner know, like, okay, we need some help, it's time to call a Green Dot Ranger?
You could ask any ranger to help you do that. And basically, if the problem is recurring or just seems to be just, if nobody is able to handle it in the camp, if people are losing their collective shit, if people can't talk calmly to each other about a problem or keep on talking around the problem keeps on arising. If you believe that there could be issues around, say, consent or assault or people's comfort levels or anything like that, and it keeps on happening, please call a Green Dot.
All right. And Chelsea, how would burners access Zendo services, and when should they?
Zendo services, how you would access them is that you would need to come to us. So again, our locations are at the 3 and 9 o'clock keyhole, just by medical and rangers. And you can look for our sign. It's a big flagpole, so it's visible and lit up at night. But people would need to come to us. You can just walk right up to our front welcoming area. The cases in which that would be appropriate are really up to anybody. I mean, we're there for support of any kind. So it could be that there's, challenges going on at camp, like BlackSwan said, that aren't able to be worked out there in camp. It could be that a friend took too much LSD and the camp doesn't know how to deal with them and they need some support with that. It could be a variety of reasons. And there are times where we will escalate our services to rangers and to the SIT team, depending on the circumstance. But if it's just if it's a crisis that can be, doesn't include domestic violence, sexual assault, suicidal ideation, or any possible medical issues, then generally we can be there for support.
Great, thank you. Anna, how about you with crisis intervention?
To reach crisis intervention, you can go to any ranger or medical station, and we can be reached on the radio for that. It's pretty simple. We get a lot of referrals actually from the rangers and Green Dots, because they are usually that first tier on the ground. And unlike the rangers and medical, we don't have necessarily a physical station that you can just walk up to. Like we said, we're a bike mobile team, so usually we're called in on the radio via either rangers or medical station, somebody with a radio.
Okay. When would it be time for someone to call for your help?
We will get calls. A lot of times people come out to the Playa and they may have forgotten their medication, the mental illness, and stuff like that. And they maybe come from New York and left the medication on the counter when they were packing and running to the airport, and then they get out on the playa and they're fine for a day or 2 or 3, but then all of a sudden they realize that they're getting over their head, and their campmates are going, oh my God, what do we do? We can't help this person. We don't know what to do. So that would be a great time to give us a call in, because they know they have a diagnosis of something and they're starting maybe to have a mental health breakdown. And so we would call in the crisis intervention team first, which is our, it's a higher level than peer support, but it is made up of therapists and counselors and psych interns. And they'll come out, they'll assess the situation, they'll see if they can't sit with that person, talk to them, help them get to a safe place, and then maybe help them navigate a way to medical and you know, a way to get like some temporary medications. They might have to leave the playa and come back. But that would be one time. Another time is, again, if someone is dealing with issues of sexual assault or domestic violence. And sometimes that can even be people who get out to the playa and are triggered by a historical assault. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that happened there on the playa. We get a lot of calls for people who have historical assaults, and they will want somebody to talk to because they've seen something or something has happened and they're just triggered. And so again, that's when you would, you know, call the Rangers. Rangers might be able to help them, but if they're still wanting that higher level of care, our team, sexual assault team, is made up of volunteers and some advocates back in their hometowns. But you have to be volunteering or working year-round as sexual assault, domestic violence in those areas. So if they're needing to speak to an actual sexual assault advocate, we've got those out there. So again, going through the Rangers or medical station or something like that.
That's great. Thank you all. Thank each of you for the work that you do on the playa. We are ever grateful for your services. So I'm going to turn focus a little bit more toward what is happening at this moment right now. Last night I was in the parking lot at the ER for a non-pandemic related incident. I was cold and I was curled up in my car trying to sleep, and there were sirens and helicopters and people outside yelling, and I was wearing my mask. And I was thinking, man, burners are great navigators of chaos. I think that many people are struggling right now in this tumultuous time. And I'm wondering if there are things that you're doing in your work at Burning Man that people could use and are applicable in times like these.
At the Crisis Center, I can tell you what we're doing. We're also the suicide crisis line too. When you see the 1-800, the suicide number for National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, we are one of 6 backup centers around the whole United States, connected with Lifeline. So we're one of their backup centers. So we have seen a really big increase in calls. So there's a lot of different things that we do when people are really upset and angry, and or just upset and anxious with anxiety. A couple of the different things we try, like we call it the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. You know, if we can't get them to just come to a calm place, and so we'll talk to them for a few minutes. We'll try, you know, some deep breathing. If that doesn't work, then we start doing like, can you tell me 5 things you see around me? And we'll wait for them to tell us. And then 4 things that you can touch. And so tactile, we try and get them to, you know, to do that. Name 4 things they can touch. 3 things that you can hear. And so focus on some sounds and different things that they hear around them. And then 2 things that you can smell. And then 1 thing that you can taste, like, you know, cup of tea or something like that. Yeah, and that usually will get them down to a place where we can, by the time they get there, sometimes they're there before they hit that 1, but we just talk with them, because then we're ready to really have a conversation. And for those of you, if you're dealing with anybody with anxiety, that really is one of the techniques that we use on the phones that works really, really well. And we also take that out to the playa too, and we can use that if we're face to face with a person and they're having some problems. We'll sit there and do that with them and kind of do it in a calm, peaceful way. So we've also, I've got the listener's disclaimer. I think we talked about that briefly. I can kind of give you guys that if you're trying to help a person who is, and we use this for our training. I'm looking for the right one. I actually have two of these. So which one am I going to use? It's called a listener's disclaimer, and this is how we teach our crisis line staff, and we use it out on the Playa too. And so if you happen to be, because we're talking not just on the Playa, but we're talking about here in our communities and in your communities, which wherever, it's I'm here to listen, not to work miracles. I'm here to help you discover what you are feeling, not make those feelings go away. I'm here to help you identify your options, not decide what you should do. I'm here to discuss steps with you, not to take those steps for you. I'm here to help you discover your strength, not to rescue you and leave you vulnerable. I'm here to help you discover you can help yourself, not to take responsibility for you. I'm here to help you learn to choose, not to keep you from making the difficult choices. I'm here to provide you support and for you to change and grow. So we kind of come at it when we're doing our counseling, and you can do that too. So if you want to be there to help someone, just listen. That's the best thing you can do. Don't try and interject. Don't try and fix them. Just listen, because you're giving them the power to discover what is inside them and bring that to the front. So if you've gotten them to a calm place and you're knowing your role is there to as a listener, those are the best things you can do in times here in your own communities or out there on the Playa. Does that help a little?
Yeah, thank you. So we have Tamara Brody asking if she can get a copy of that.
I don't know how, but I can email it to you if you'd like, and you can get it out to people.
Sure, or you can post it in the chat if you're able to do that.
Maybe I can give it a try while somebody else is talking. Let me see what I can do.
So BlackSwan, what parts of your ranger training could we use off Playa right now?
Check in with yourself. Make sure that you know your triggers. If something is making you feel, if you're feeling anxious or bad, try to figure out, what's causing me to, maybe back away for a little bit. It's okay to back away, and to try to figure out, why you're feeling the way you're feeling, or whether this is the best time to actually approach something. Just check in and be friendly with yourself and with all of your other people. Luckily enough, this pandemic happened at a time when it's easy to check in with folks via various social media kinds of things. It's not just calling people on the phone. If this had happened in 1985, this would be an entirely different sort of thing to be going through as far as social sheltering in place or social isolation. So just make sure to call one friend a day that you usually wouldn't call or text. I just got a text from a friend of mine that I haven't talked to in months, just random text saying, hope you're well, hi, thinking of you. And it was just such a lovely gesture. And it didn't, I didn't have to do anything other than say, love you back, thanks. And it makes you realize that we're still connected. So keep up with your social connections. There's all kinds of ways to do it, and however is comfortable for you, you should do that. It's kind of like the way rangers kind of stroll along Black Rock City and look at things. Appreciate the art, get into some interesting conversations, and don't forget to go to sleep and drink water and eat food.
Yeah, I agree. I think all those things that that help us stay centered and also just help us remember, oh, it's easier to be irritable right now. Like when you go on the Playa, you might be a little bit dehydrated. They all apply. So Chelsea, how about you with Zendo? Are there some specific centering and calming techniques that you use?
Yeah, I mean, it's great because with our volunteers, people can bring a variety of different skills and meditations and, personal tricks to the space. You know, and I'm going to go through our Zendo principles in a brief little harm reduction training that I'm going to do here in a few minutes. And so all of those principles are really applicable in times like these. You know, the same support that we're providing to guests in the Zendo is really support we can provide to our friends and in our community. And, you know, and I think it really starts with just reaching out, which is what BlackSwan is saying, you know, and these can be very isolating times. And so, you know, it's just reaching out and saying, hey, how are you? How are you hanging in there? Or reaching out and saying, hey, I'm having a really hard time. You know, I could use a little support. And there are so many platforms in which we can do that. But I think just reaching out and checking in on one another is really where it starts. And that's where it starts on the Playa too. You know, it's when we reach out for the services that are available, or when someone reaches out on our behalf, that we can really start to access these things.
Yeah, I have a friend who's calling it, we're practicing physical distancing, but this is a time for social connection.
Yeah, that's great.
Anna or BlackSwan, do either of you have some particular centering or calming techniques that you use for yourself?
For me, a lot of it is, I come from a background in meditation. And so a lot of this is for me to just, you know, sit down and be quiet. Just, you know, realize that the world is still spinning, and also just realize that, you know, this will end. This is not a pandemic that will go on and on and on and on forever. You know, reminding myself that the science is there and they are going to trials and we are going to find things is, you know, that's up and coming. And so a lot of this is about just being, you know, taking a breath, realizing that this will end, which is one of the things that I say a lot when I'm sitting with people who have taken a few extra drugs or, you know, not taken enough water. And it's like, you know, this will end. It'll be, you know, you're not going to die. And hopefully none of us will during this, because this is, you know, it is a life or death situation. But if we practice, you know, if we stay in place, if we do all these things, we won't. Mm-hmm. And so just remind yourself, it's okay. And also, you know, we can't help our feelings arising. They will arise no matter what. It's how we deal with them that actually gives us any kind of, you know, handle on it. And so, and just realize that we're going to lose our shit. We're going to lose it. And be gentle with yourself when you do that, and then come back and apologize to those that you should apologize to, and go on.
And forgive ourselves. Yeah.
So for me, I do pretty much the same things. But if I'm in here at the work environment, or I'll sit down on my Fitbit, I have like a breathing meditation thing. I'll turn that on for 2 or 3 minutes and just, you know, take a 2 or 3 minute self-care break. You know, people talk about self-care and they think of big and things that take a long time, but a quick little 2 or 3 minute mindfulness with my little thing that tell inhale and exhale. If it's after work and I get home, I have my dog Gemma, she's sitting behind me here. I brought her to work, but I'll just throw the leash on her and we just start walking. And in the beginning, I'm just like trudging all the way down the street, boop, boop, boop. But then eventually, and poor Gemma's keeping up with me, going and going. And then eventually there's a shift that happens and she's in front of me, and all of a sudden then I start she's getting all happy and stuff like that. And anything that was stressing me out is gone. I look at her happy little wiggly self, and then I know we're ready to turn around and head back to the house. So, you know, so there are a couple different things that I do. Some of them are, you know, they benefit her and me, but for here at the work, just taking some really deep breaths and knowing that this is going to pass. You know, it's you know, 100-year thing going on that we've got here. So it hasn't come back around for 100 years. So now, you know, we got something new, and it'll pass. People survive it, and you know, our time will come again when we can get back together with community and our families and friends.
Thank you. What about some things that aren't necessarily mental health related, like you were saying, getting with your pet, or making something, changing what you're doing in the moment, just changing your mindset, and Any other tips from our panelists?
Reconnect with some hobby that you have dropped. Pick up those knitting needles, pick up that ukulele, even if you do it badly, it doesn't matter right now. If you knit the same sweater, the same scarf 5 times using Red Heart yarn that's from 1975 that your grandmother gave you, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if there's a couple of drop stitches. It's okay. Just reconnect with something, and the act of actually doing that is crafting and drawing and baking and food preparation and all the rest of those things. Those are all things that bring us back in contact with our body and give us little rituals to perform. And so, take time out for those things. You write yourself a new work schedule. If you're working from home, then, you're working from home. My workload is doubled because I am now homeschooling as well as working. But if you've got downtime, write yourself your new schedule, and, enjoy the fact that you don't have to be good at something. You can just enjoy it or just try. And so, if you've got a forgotten hobby somewhere, or if you always have wanted to try, no special tools are needed. Just find what's around with you and kind of be playful with it. Fold paper airplanes again. There's hundreds. All of these things are valid.
And one of the things you did mention is cooking. So my kids are grown, they're out of the house. So I go home each day to a social distance, and I've got my dog and my 2 cats. But the other thing I do is make healthy meals. Get yourself like Forks Over Knives, magazine or something like that, or look them up online, and just start making, if you're not used to making your own home cooked meals, get some vegetables and fruit in you and just start making some really neat recipes. It's really fun. There's so much out there. So just going home and cooking and making yourself something that is healthy and nourishing to your body. You're putting all the nutrients in it. It really is, because I'm such a grab and go person with the call center here and home, or even on the Playa, I'm kind of grab and go. But if you sit there and do some meal prep, it's really fun. Something about the chopping and the cutting and making something really unique and healthy is good.
And there's several great recommendations in the chat too, which I love to see everybody contributing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
What are you seeing, Chelsea?
Oh, I see the halt, the hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, and I think that's really just pointing to the importance of our foundational needs. I always say on the Playa, usually baseline is dehydrated, tired, and who knows what else, just as baseline. And so even in times like these, just making sure we're sleeping enough, that we're eating nutritious food, that we're hydrating ourselves, and meeting our basic care needs. I think that really just sets the foundation for everything else.
Nice. I added to the chat a link for the World Health Organization handbook on providing psychological first aid, which anyone can do. So please feel free to check that out. Let's turn toward self-care. Is there anything that we haven't already talked about that we're doing for self-care? What are our favorite things?
I would say doing a little bit of mindfulness, like either in the morning when you first get up, or at night before you go to bed, if you keep a journal by your bed, and maybe write 3 or 4 things that you're thankful for the day, or that you're grateful for. And just because I think if you start doing that mindfulness work, I'll do it morning and evening, so 2 different ways. But I end my day and I start my day with things that I am grateful and thankful for. And that in itself, you'll be surprised at how quickly that can actually start shifting your mood. So I would say if you can try and keep a mindfulness journal or a mindfulness jar, something like that, it really does help keep that into the forefront of you, to realize all the things that you're thankful for. So like, I'm very thankful that I'm still coming to my job, that I am able to help people. Just something simple, little things. Try not to repeat the same things over and over again, because when I first started that, I was like, I'm glad everybody in my family's healthy. I just went through this whole thing, and then I built off of that. But try and come up with each day, what was special? What was that gift of the day that you're thankful for?
Yeah. Practicing gratitude is really powerful. Yeah.
I'm journaling as well, publicly on Facebook and not publicly, just in my journal. And I feel like the actual physical act of writing, of putting pen to paper, is an important one in this, in this time. And I have a reminder for everyone as far as kind of a clear and present worry for almost all of us is, will the event happen? And if so, will we have time to get things done? And one of the things that my husband, Apollo, and I were talking about was the 2007 impromptu burning of the man that happened on Tuesday. And the team came together, they just got more people to work on it, and we had a new man pretty quick. And so, we're very uncertain about some of these things now, but if we, we will have we will have the time that we have to make the things that we make. And so, we don't know what's going to happen with this or how it's going to happen. It might be different than past years, but we will have the time to do the things that we're going to do. So, this is somebody saying earlier that we're good. This group is good at dealing with chaos and crisis. We will be good within this, and we will be good after.
I've been doing a little bit of a meditation on, I kind of call it the bridge. It's something that I've just kind of come up with for myself, but it's, I think sometimes when the world feels really uncertain, we swing between these extremes of like, oh my gosh, catastrophic thinking, this is the end, and in that more negative place. Or then we swing to the other side, which is like, this is, it's not a big deal, it's over, it's going to be over soon. And so I've been really trying to kind of stay on the bridge between those two things. And so whatever it is in the moment, I may feel really upset about this one thing, but what's the other side of that? Trying to kind of bring perspective in the moment and just imagine myself like being able to hold those two extremes in the same moment. And in holding that, I can kind of sit there in the middle and not get so pulled off kilter one direction or the other. And you can really use that with anything, anything that's coming up in the moment. Like, even if we look at this whole experience and how challenging it has been on a world level, we're still able to see where some benefits are coming out of it, like whether it's less pollution or, the animals who are safer in the water, or, having a little more time in the morning to wake up and get our days going, So I think it's just kind of reminding ourselves to find that center of all that's happening and seeing if we can, have that balanced perspective in the midst of everything.
Yeah, focusing on the positive when we can. Yeah. So in addition to the psychological first aid handbook that we posted in the chat, we have the opportunity now with Chelsea from Zendo to be able to go through kind of a primer on harm reduction. Are you prepared to do that now, Chelsea?
Sure. Yeah, I'm gonna actually share my screen with y'all so that you can just you can take a look at our slideshow, and we've condensed it down quite a bit. So I'll try and keep it kind of quick. But one second, let me see if this will work. There we go. Okay, can you guys see the Zendo on the Playa?
Yeah.
Okay, great, awesome. So yeah, so the Zendo Project, like I said, provides psychological support for people undergoing difficult experiences, and has been doing so since its inception at Burning Man in 2012. Since then, we've served over 6,000 guests and trained thousands of volunteers in peer support. Yeah, and also provided worldwide outreach and trainings around the world. So this is the mission and the vision of the Zendo Project. Our mission is to provide a supportive environment and education to help transform difficult psychedelic or psychological experiences into opportunities for learning and growth. and where we can envision a world where communities are engaged in providing this kind of safety and support to people undergoing these challenging experiences, and using harm reduction principles foremost to reduce the risks associated with substance use. So harm reduction defined. Harm reduction, according to the Harm Reduction Coalition, is a set of strategies and ideas aimed at reducing negative consequences associated with drug use. It can also be expanded outside of drug use. I mean, giving free condoms is a form of harm reduction, even sex education, things like that. Another example of harm reduction would be like clean needle programs. But overall, you know, in the case of the Zendo Project, our hope is to increase knowledge and awareness around the risks of drug use, and therefore creating a more informed and conscious community, and inviting honest conversations to happen around drug use and what the risks are. So let's see. Go. So why the peer support model? So someone asked on the chat earlier, what is peer support? Peer support it's not therapy with therapists, it's groups of volunteers in our case who are trained to provide support to other people in their community. So anyone can apply to be a Zendo volunteer. And then, you know, through that application process, we choose volunteers for our events, and then every event has a training. People can also just access our training out there in the world. We offer trainings online and also in person, although that hasn't been happening as of late, but we do offer them online as well. And so the hope with the peer support model is to just increase knowledge about psychedelics and the effects of the effects that they have on people. And these principles that we use are really about compassionate intervention, and that can be used in any difficult experience. It doesn't have to be psychedelic specific. And additionally, the hope is to just reduce the trauma and harm that can go on around these sort of experiences. So, you know, if someone's having a difficult psychedelic experience and say they come into an ER, they may be sedated or restrained, and those can be, you know, difficult. That can be a more traumatizing experience. And so the hope is to reduce those kind of experiences. So the foundations of peer support is, what does peer support sitters provide? We call our volunteers sitters, and we call the folks who come in and receive our services guests. So we are there to support people who are having a difficult experience with the use of psychedelics. But like I said, someone can come in who's having a personal crisis. And at Burning Man, that might look like, my boyfriend just broke up with me and I don't know where to go. It could be that they arrived on Playa already going through a really difficult time, and the overwhelm and the overstimulation is just overwhelming and they need some support. So it could really be any of those. We don't provide medical care and treatment, clinical interventions. That would be SIT team, who's dealing with domestic violence and sexual assault. Mental health services, so assessments for something like suicidality would also be a SIT appropriate case. And then we don't do any physical restraint or sedation. So understanding difficult experiences. I'm really making an effort. A lot of our trainings are focused on psychedelics, but you know, I think in this time in the world, these principles really are expandable to all sorts of difficult times in the world. So how do we understand a difficult experience? A lot of times when we're going through difficult times, our subconscious, the unconscious, is arising and becoming conscious, and unexpected things can happen or arise out of our unconscious, which can include, you know, hidden parts of ourselves we rejected or denied or suppressed, as well as past traumas. And so when we're faced with this part of ourselves in a difficult time, we can experience fear, anxiety, disorientation, overwhelm, and just general challenges that can be associated with that happening. So additionally, you know, it is in these difficult experiences that we can find transformation if we have a safe container and if we have the right environment and the right support. And with the right support, you know, we can learn and surrender into what's happening and possibly come out of the experience with some opportunities for change. So I'm going to go into our 4 principles here on how to give peer support. So the four guiding principles of the Zendo Project are safe space, sitting, not guiding, talking through, not down, and difficult is not the same as bad. So we'll start with safe space. So sweet little puppy here. And, you know, we can all think of what a safe space is. And even if someone wants to throw some ideas into the chat about what makes them feel safe, it can be different for everybody. For me, like feeling warm helps me to feel safe, or being around people I know who will accept me for who I am, even with my faults. That makes me feel safe. And, you know, and it could be different things. I like to be around people. Some people prefer to be alone. My 5-year-old hates being warm. I'm so comfortable and cozy in my house, and he's like peeling layers off miserably hot, you know, so it just depends on, you know, every individual person. There's several aspects to a safe space. So it can be the mindset, like the mindset that you're in, the mindset that the people around you are in. It can be the environment, and also even the relationships and the dynamics of the relationships in the space. So here we're looking at the physical environment. Obviously, when we're overwhelmed and there's a lot of hardship going on, fewer inputs is better. So, you know, I think things that can be overwhelming or create even additional overwhelm is things like bright lights and loud noises and a lot of people. And so we want to really move people away from that when possible, and find what makes the body more at ease and what kind of space can we create to make for more ease. Because that's immediately going to provide some soothing to what's happening. And there's a few comfort items listed over there that we like to bring with us to events, but that, you know, we can use at any time. So we talk about set and setting. Setting would be the external state. Set is the internal state. And set is what's going on inside of us, which could be what's going on inside of us when we come into a difficult experience, or it could even be what arises as a result of the difficult experience. But the perception of feeling safe can really help us to move past those stuck places and give us more of a sense that we can handle what's happening, right? Because if we're not in a safe space, it's just not going to be available, because being safe is so foundational to human well-being. And so it's finding that peace in that space, and then just, you know, having the safe space and the presence of a calm, grounded, compassionate person can go a long ways in helping someone feel safe. And if someone's there to be compassionate with us in a difficult time, it can also support us to just have more compassion for ourselves and to just allow and let what's happening occur. And again, you know, approaching with kindness and openness just creates a container. It creates a space that allows what's happening to just unfold. Supportive expression. Another thing that's safe is to just let somebody share their experience openly and let them know that what's happening is welcome. So that's something we do in the Zendo, but something we can do with each other as well. And also, you know, it can be helpful to reframe somebody's experience, just to give them a different perspective that you might have to help them maybe see the benefit of what's happening. So, you know, someone might say to you, like, you know, I feel like I'm dying. You know, that happens on psychedelics. And you can say to them, that sounds really scary, you know, and maybe there's something in this opportunity, something you can see there. You know, and it could be really anything that you could dig in and see, but reframing can be supportive as long as you're not denying the person's experience. Okay, so then our next principle is sitting, not guiding. And this is my favorite principle because it's actually so simple. It's just about being. You know, I think sometimes when we see somebody having a hard time, we really feel like we want to fix it and we need to do something. And the sitting, not guiding is like, let's just be here with you and I'm just going to be present. So there's so much, you know, there's so much in that space of just being.
Just sitting can be really hard to do.
Yes. And I think that the, you know, the concept of sitting and not guiding is really giving to someone's inner guidance. So if you know, if we don't avoid choosing their direction, we're allowing their inner guide to carry them down the path, and really allowing them and supporting them in trusting their own process. So we want to encourage them to connect with that wisdom, and just recognize that emotionally they may know what's best for themselves, even if they can't express it. And so, like Leanne said, you can support expression, which can be, you know, I mean, if they need to move around, you can encourage them to move around. If, you know, sometimes if it just seems like they're holding their breath, you can just take a deep, audible breath, breathe in and breathe out, and they may hear that and take your lead. And you can, you know, move around and express as needed. You know, and Anna touched on this as well, you know, words can be really confusing, especially when, you know, when your brain's not fully functioning because you're in that altered state. And so, you know, we encourage people to use words sparingly unless somebody wants to dialogue, and just be present rather than analyzing what they're saying and what's coming up, and just listen with that open heart and open mind. And we also use the concept of the beginner's mind, where, you know, we're just an open vessel and allowing what's happening to show us what's needed. And then reflection, of course, is that, you know, we can see what's happening and ask questions to help that individual deepen their experience, and really listen with curiosity about what's happening for them. And be the observer, you know, allow the individual to come to their own insights and conclusions. And it is okay, you know, at times to provide your own perspective, but really we want to focus on helping them come to their own insights through their own inquiry, and inviting them to be in awareness of their body and breath and the experience itself. And we can always offer small caring offerings like tea and water and blanket and snack. So talking through, not down. You know, if somebody's high, you can't say stop being high. And I mean, it just doesn't work, right? It would be nice, I think, in many cases if it did, because lots of us would like out of a hard experience. And it's true with difficulty. If somebody's upset and you just say stop being upset, how effective is that, right? The only way through an experience is through it. You know, we can't just turn it off, although I know there are times where we'd all like to be able to. And so really with the talking through, not down, time is the best medicine. We can't stop the ride that we're on. We just have to keep on riding until we get to the other side. And being a grounded person, being grounded and sitting with that person can just help transition to less distress. You can help the individual by even saying, turn, you know, what about like they're uncomfortable, something uncomfortable is arising. What if they turn toward that? What's there? You know, encouraging them to trust the process, validating their thoughts and emotions, and just letting them know that whatever's arising is arising because it just needs to be seen, and it's okay to turn toward it. Sometimes we say what resists persists, and we like to use the mantra, trust, let go, be open. Trust, let go, be open, which reminds us we can follow our inner guide. Again, we don't want to dismiss or invalidate what someone's perceiving. Person to person, right? Our perception of what's happening is so different, and someone may be seeing something or experiencing something or interpreting something in a way that doesn't make sense to us. But that doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense to us. What's important is that we allow their experience and don't rush it. Don't try and fix anything. We don't need a solution. You know, we just want to give validation to what's happening for them individually. Okay, difficult is not the same as bad. So, of course, many of us have heard of having a bad trip, right? Usually if we had a difficult trip, it gets labeled as bad. And that's true of just difficult experiences in general. It's easy to just say, oh, that was so bad. It was so difficult, it was so bad. And, you know, it is in those, you know, those challenging experiences, in that difficulty, that we really can change and grow. And so there's something valuable in that difficulty. So, you know, if everyone just wants to take a moment to reflect on a challenging experience that you've had in your life, and how your ability to move through that challenging experience changed you somehow in a way that was for the better, right? Brought you an opportunity for growth. Who would you have been without that challenge? And how have you made that challenge into a strength? So like I said, difficult life experiences can be the most valuable learning opportunities. And it's, you know, strength and resilience, surrender and wisdom are often forged in the fires lit in our darkest time. I like to say that the seed of light is found in our darkest time. That seed of change that we really need, we will really find it when we're in that space. And so however challenging the situation may seem, you know, that we can be a presence for others who are going through that, to just remind them that that space is there. And I just wanted to read you guys a little quote just to this effect. Go back up to this slide. From a book called Spiritual Emergency by Stan Groff and Christina Groff. Stan Groff's a pioneer of psychedelic therapy, and after psychedelics were made illegal, he developed what's called holotropic breath work. And holotropic breath work is a way to access altered states through breathing, and is really a part of where Zendo philosophy has arisen. So I'm going to just read you a short little paragraph. The Chinese pictogram for crisis perfectly represents the idea of spiritual emergency. It is composed of two basic signs, or radicals. One of them means danger, the other opportunity. Thus, while passage through this kind of condition is often difficult and frightening, these states have tremendous evolutionary and healing potential. If properly understood and treated as a difficult stage in a natural developmental process, spiritual emergencies can result in spontaneous healing of various emotional and psychosomatic disorders, favorable personality changes, solutions to important problems in life, and evolution towards what some call higher consciousness. So this is just reminding us that although even what we're going through on a world level right now may be difficult, there's also an opportunity for us to enter into a process of self-exploration and see what lies in that for us. So I guess we started to touch on this in our call earlier, and so I won't stay too long on self-care. I think we know how important that is in these times, you know, for all of us to find our own individual ways to care for ourselves, meeting our basic needs, and, you know, watching for burnout. I know a lot of people are home, you know, dealing with family and things that they wouldn't otherwise deal with in the day-to-day, and others are out there on the front lines, you know, working nonstop to help with everything that's happening. And so just keeping an eye on ourselves and watching for burnout. Exhaustion is a sign of burnout, irritability, feeling sick, numbness, fogginess. And when we're noticing that those things are arising, you know, taking the time to just pause and take care of ourselves. Also just important to recognize our personal limitations. And like I said earlier, ask for help when we need it, hydrate, eat, take care of our bodies. And, you know, when you can't take care of something, when something feels too much, it's okay to ask for help and to kick something sideways and see if you can take something off your plate. And then ethics, pop down to our next slide here. Ethical guidelines for sitters, ethical guidelines for being a good friend, is just impeccable ethical standards. You know, when people are in vulnerable states, it's so important to be treated with care and dignity. And we can do this through respecting confidentiality. And this is with friends too, not just in the professions, but as well as, among each other as a community. Consent is so important when we're with somebody, asking them before we do something like touch them, put our hand around them, ask them if it's okay. And, just treating individuals with the care you'd want for yourself and your family and your own community, and acting with the most integrity really helps hard times not become worse times. So beyond Black Rock, it's kind of where we're at overall right now. But we often witness people going through these deep traumatic emotional processes and not having a safe container. And so what can we do to just teach people about how they can create these safe containers for one another and for themselves? And, as peer support providers, we get the opportunity to do this on the Playa and at other events around the world, but we can also do this just every day with our families and our friends, and help bring people through these difficult times. So, harm reduction itself, we feel, is a really crucial component of improving our mental health system in our society out here in the world. And this is a unique model for compassionate care, like I said many times, not just for psychedelic crisis, but for challenging situations and emotional distress like the current state that the world is in right now. For Zendo Project, you can find more information on what we're doing at zendoproject.org. We have trainings all over the world when we're not on lockdown, but we do have some online. We're happy to support grassroots organizations that want to provide services or learn about these services for events they're holding. And so, we're accessible and there for that sort of support in these times. So, yeah, thank you all for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions or thoughts or anything that might have arisen. I'm going to pop off the screen share just 1 second.
Thank you, Chelsea. Peta, do you have some questions lined up for any of our panelists?
Yes, I can go ahead and start with the most recent question. From Disco Bug, oops.
Sorry, I'm just having a hard time getting off the screen share. There we go.
I think
that's it. We good?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So here's a question. Does the same advice apply to someone experiencing menacing voices due to schizophrenia? Still turn toward it? ? I struggle with this and attempting to hold space for these individuals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. So, I work at a crisis center here in Grass Valley. I manage our crisis team, and we're dealing with people who are in various psychotic states based on mental illness. And, what I find is it depends on the circumstance. Every situation is unique. But what I do find is that when somebody's having hallucinations or they have beliefs of things that we don't see there, that telling them that's not true doesn't really prove to be that helpful. It can often make them feel more lonely, more lost, more agitated. And so there's ways that we can still validate what's happening for them. It's not about it being right or wrong or they're being accurate or inaccurate. My take is that if you can provide them with some support in regard to what's happening to them by validating what's happening. So I could give you an example. I worked with a gal once who believed that she was a witch and that there were spirits outside that were attacking her, right? She had this feeling that even though she was in a space itself that was safe, she felt like she was being energetically attacked. And she also felt that she had witch powers as a witch. And so the question that we asked her was, are there any of your powers that you could help to protect yourself? Right? So we're validating her experience and resourcing her. And you know what? She calmed down immediately. She calmed down and she started accessing her own resources. And so there's ways that we can do that that's unique. And again, it depends on the situation. And there's everyday situations arise that we've never seen. Even on the crisis team, we think, okay, we got this. And then every day, something new. So, it really does depend on the situation, but it can be appropriate to really validate and see if you can use those resources to help with their own resources to help them through something like that.
I have another potential tool to use when people are having experiences that are not part of consensual reality. And that is if they're seeing a pink elephant and you don't, it's fine. It's perfectly fine to say, I don't see that pink elephant right now. Can you describe it a little more to me? Where do you see it? And just in a very friendly way, so that you're not accusing them, but just to invite them to describe their experience. And that can often, kind of lead them into I have power over this thing. If I can describe it, if I can name it, that means that I have a handle on it. And that can allow people to actually, kind of get their way through that. And if the pink elephant continues to sit in the corner of the room, that's just fine. And then you can gently steer people towards, well, how about this other thing? Now that we've spent some time with the pink elephant. And sometimes they loop and they'll go back to the pink elephant. You have to say, yeah, the pink elephant's still there. And then you can keep on going.
BlackSwan, I'd also like to go off of that because we have regular callers to the crisis line here that live with schizophrenia, and they hear voices, and we're like, okay, they'll call and we're like, okay, so you're hearing the voices again today. What are the voices telling you? Because when we have our new trainees coming on board, everybody always goes to what you see in the movies, that they're scary and awful and death and dying and all the other, but really it's just what are the voices telling you? And we let them tell us what they're experiencing and how they're doing it. And we even face to face in our SAS, we have one woman who lives locally, and she's been assaulted a couple times because she's a street person, but in her purse she has 2 people in her purse, and they help her get through the day. So when we are going through, so you want to have the exam, and she'll look this way and she'll look this way, and she'll yes, we do. And so we just talk with them and find out how they're doing. And then on the phones, it's like, okay, so what are you going to do to stay safe? We might check to see when the last time they had something to eat or drink was. But we get quite frequently, we get people calling our crisis lines, and we just talk with them and talk them through it. And they tend to end the calls on their own. They're like, okay, thank you. And then they head on their way. So, just check in with them and see what's going on with them. You're right with your pink elephant. Well, it's okay to say, I don't see the pink elephant, but you do. And so what's it doing? So, yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing I would add to that is that if you're really struggling with a particular situation, that it's okay to kick it sideways to somebody who might not struggle with it as much, because if there are just times where we're dealing with a situation and for some reason it's bringing up irritation or bringing up our own feelings of frustration, and maybe that's your own body talking to you about, maybe this isn't a situation that I can be of support with right now. And so it's okay to ask for help.
Do we have any other questions, Peta?
Yes, we do. The next question is referring to your slide deck, Chelsea Rose Mama Bear. Can people get a copy of the slide deck?
Oh, probably. Yeah, I would have to figure out how. Let me see if I can do that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a tip for getting connected while we're sheltering in place or kind of stuck in our homes. Recently, I took my favorite tip and I made a little video and posted it to my own social media for my own friends and family. And it worked great. And when I was getting feedback subsequently and for a few days after that, it kept taking me back to my own tool. And so it kind of reverberated in power that way. So I think that people need to see us using our own tools, and I would challenge you to produce your own little video clips for your friends and family right now. And then if we have any more questions or moments of inspiration, we're ready for those, Peta.
How will the pandemic change your process, protocols, or procedures at Burning Man?
That's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm not sure yet. You know, I mean, it feels like everything's changing so fast, as we know, and you know, it just seems uncertain what's going to be like in a week or 2 weeks or 2 months or 5 months when Burning Man time comes around. So I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, I think it's too early to say anything about that because this could go a lot of different ways at this point. And so I am waiting and finding out and observing. And I've been doing a lot of reading around people who wrote letters and other stuff after the 1918 pandemic, and about how my grandparents lived through that and about how that affected them psychologically. So whenever Burning Man is after this, people will come in with, the need to process it, just the way that they've needed to process other bad things that have happened to us. After Katrina happened, people processed that. After other disasters, people processed those things at Burning Man. So I think it won't be so much a change, but the fact that instead of it being a localized sort of phenomenon, this is a worldwide phenomenon. And this is going to change us all, and the degree of change and how that change happens, we don't know that yet, and we have to kind of be okay with that and sit with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're all sitting with a big question mark.
Yeah.
Anna, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, we don't know the future. None of us know what the future holds. So for Burning Man, I'm just going straight forwards, like it's going to happen until I hear it doesn't. So we are practicing, we're learning our skills now on social distancing and how to keep safe and how to keep things clean. And if it happens, yay.
Yeah.
I'm just going forwards like it is until I hear that it's not, or it might not, or it's being postponed or whatever. So
We're practicing our skills in immediacy.
exactly.
All right, Peta, next question.
Okay, I think this might be the last question. It's a question that came at the very beginning of our session. And the question is, what does peer support mean? So perhaps in reference to the introduction, because it came in at about 3:28.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, peer support. I mean, peer support is people coming together to support their own peer groups. So at Burning Man, peer support is supporting other burners in the experiences that they're having at Burning Man. And like I said, you can train anybody in our community. People can learn these skills and bring them to the Playa and bring them to the Zendo if they like to, bring them to their own communities. But it's not about a licensed professional or therapy or anything like that. It's just really about us supporting each other as a community.
It's also about helping people with lived life experiences, helping other people going through similar situations.
Yeah.
So like for our sexual assault, a lot of our advocates, some of them are college students and don't have trauma in their background, but others have gone through it, and they are supporting the people who might be going through something now with trippers and people like that who are having fun. It's really great to have someone who can relate to what these people might be going through. So they've got lived experiences. With our survivors of suicide loss group, a lot of our volunteers on the suicide hotline have lost friends, family members, loved ones, co-workers to suicide. So they all have lived experience. And they don't, they're not necessarily professionals. Some of them are, but the majority of them, they just want to come forward to help because they've walked, not in those shoes, but they've walked that path, to a certain extent.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Chelsea Rose, do you have a mindfulness exercise for us in about 5 to 8 minutes?
Sure. You know, I was actually just going to share a little reading as our closing, if that works for everybody. But I guess we can ask if there's any other questions. I did see one question somebody asked about departments wanting an intro to our services. If you're in a camp leadership position and you want to know more about Zendo specifically, you can email us at zendo@maps.org. I'll put it in the chat. And I don't know if the other gals have any suggestions there.
Rangers.org, www.rangers.org has a lot of information about the Rangers. Feel free to ask any Ranger about that sort of thing. And you can also email me. I am BlackSwan@burningman.com. And so if you get any questions, please feel free to hit me up via my inbox.
Anna, how can people volunteer or get training with SIT?
They can, if they want to volunteer for the crisis intervention team, they can fill out the volunteer application online for Burning Man. If they want to volunteer with the crisis center, they can, if they're in Nevada, in the Reno or greater area there, they can they can look up the website CSSNV, Crisis Support Services of Nevada, cssnv.org. And we've got a new training class coming up in May. And some of our people here, we have burners that are volunteers that then take those same skills that they learn with our agency, and they're on the team out on the Playa as well. If you need to reach me directly for some reason, my Burning Man email is anna.duffy@burningman.org. I probably check it about once every 3 days, so you might not get an immediate response unless you happen to hit on the day that I actually check it, because the center here keeps me a little busy sometimes. But I'm happy to answer any questions if I do check it periodically. So.
Okay, great. Oh, we have one more question from John Mack. Can you go ahead and type your question?
I could speak to it much more readily, and if that's possible.
Sure.
We've got 37 burns that have already been cancelled or postponed, and I sort of follow all of those communities. One of the things I observed is that there's a huge amount of social interaction happening in those communities online now, and I thought that was encouraging. After this discussion, I've suddenly started thinking about all those people who aren't connecting online with each other. They're invisible, if you like, in this circumstance. And I think what I might do out of this discussion is contact as many of those as possible and remind people in those communities perhaps to go looking for the people who've disappeared. And I've got to honestly say, I thought everything was wonderful until I sat in on this session, and now I realise, yeah, that missing cohort is potentially, something I've missed, certainly, and perhaps others have. So something perhaps I'd encourage people to address.
Yeah, thank you. And that's actually something that we wanted to encourage Team Camp organizers to do, is to reach out to your camp and connect with them and kind of take a lead in that right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as a camp leader, thank you for saying that, because it inspires me. You know, I have all the emails for everybody in my camp, and even just to send out a check-in and to people who we may be missing, I think it's a fabulous idea. Thanks, John.
Okay. Chelsea, are you ready to close us out?
Sure. I just wanted to read you just a little blurb from a prose writing by Clarissa Estes. It's called "Do Not Lose Heart. We are made for times like these." One of the most important steps you can take to help calm the storm is not allow yourself to be taken in a flurry of overwrought emotion or despair, thereby accidentally contributing to the swale and the swirl. Ours is not a task of fixing the entire world all at once, but of stretching out to mend the part of the world that is within our reach. Any small, calm thing that one soul can do to help another soul, to assist some portion of this poor suffering, will help immensely. It is not given to us to know which acts or by whom will cause the critical mass to tip toward an enduring good. What is needed for dramatic change is an accumulation of acts, adding to, adding more, continuing. We know that it does not take everyone on earth to bring justice and peace, but only a small, determined group who will not give up during the first, second, or 100th gale. One of the most calming and powerful actions you can do to intervene in a stormy world is to stand up and show your soul. Soul on deck shines like gold in dark times. In that spirit, I hope you will write this on your wall. When a great ship is in harbor and moored, it is safe. There can be no doubt. But that is not what great ships are built for. And that just really made me think, as a group, as a community of burners, as a community out in the world, the impact we can have by bringing our unique, wild selves to everything that's happening, and just stand up and be ourselves and send our care out into the world bit by bit. Thank you all for listening in today.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming. We topped out at over 50 participants today. Thank you to Anna. Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you, BlackSwan. And thank you so much, PETA, for joining us. Virtual hearts to all of you.
Yeah. Thank you for having us, and thank you for everybody who cared enough to check in. That's really great. We're all in this together, so thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I'm happy to be part of such an amazing group of people.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, thank you. All right, burners, ignite, go out into the world.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.